Hey, we're live, pal. Happy 316 day to all who celebrate. If you were in South Boston today, you probably had a good time. Green Teamers podcast, appropriate enough on a Sunday, St. Patrick's Day weekend. It is myself, it is Skaz. We're here to talk about everything Celtics. If you have a question, drop yourself into the chat. If you hear noise in the background, it's because it is the summer months, it is the springtime, it is party season. There's neighborhood parties going on as we speak, which is a good thing because that means that June is coming and the Celtics' defense of their championship is ongoing this year, but it gets even more amped up. And we saw what might be a preview of the NBA Finals as the Celtics lost to the OKC Thunder. I went too fast there. This is my speech impediment coming through. They were there's a lot of things to dig into with this Thunder game, and it's mostly that people seemed frustrated with the fouls and the refs and the amount of three-pointers that the Celtics took. So if I were to tell you, Skaz, that the Celtics had 54 open or wide open three-pointers in the game against the Thunder, what would you say?
I'd say that's pretty good.
And if I told you they only made 19 of them, what would I tell you?
I would say that's not pretty good. That's pretty bad.
And why would you think that the reasons that they may not make those three-pointers would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think OKC deserves some credit. I know you're saying wide open threes, but I still think OKC's defense, deserves some credit there. And, I thought the Celtics didn't play a great game. I thought Jaylen Brown, I'm sure we'll get into that. He had one of his worst games of the season at the absolute worst time for it to come to this point of the season. So a lot of factors there. But I thought OKC was a better team. SGA was the best player on the floor that night.
So I will tell you that I think that OKC is very well coached. I think their defense, it's been called handsy. It's a physical defense. But I think and these are like little details that I just noticed with the naked eye. I didn't want to go back and actually look at numbers that might prove my theory wrong. It felt like the Celtics were not only shooting three-pointers from deeper than normal, but also later on in the shot clock. So they're like, I don't want to call them panicky threes because they were open threes. But if the 3-point line is 23 feet 9 inches, and many of the Celtics shots were 25 or further back, then that's a problem. That's a big time problem for the Celtics. And I think that's what OKC did is they attacked at times at the right time when they kind of had an idea of what was coming. And they forced the Celtics into deeper shots along the 3-point line. And that's not necessarily good. And again, it's not panicky threes because they're 54 of 63 were open or wide open threes. So they're not panic three-pointers. They're 3-pointers that you should have time and you should have time to make. But if they're deeper behind the arc, now we're talking, quote unquote, this is dating myself, Chuck Person range, which he'd pull up from the corner, and now a lot of people are doing it. But I think that's a key. That's like a little detail. Like when we're talking about the Lakers and the Celtics games, we're talking about how JJ Redick got Luka Doncic the ball higher up in the half court so that he had more space and he ISO'd him more. And there were these little details that as we're men's. It's a game of inches. Sometimes with us in the NBA, it's a game of feet. And so if they're taking those 3-point shots at 25, 26 feet, that's not optimum. You want to be closer to the line on those, especially if they're open shots. But maybe the reason why they're open is because they're shooting it from 27, 28 feet. That's not ideal for anyone.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that's a really good point because, defending the Celtics has been a real issue for a lot of the NBA over the last year and a half, 2 years. And if Mark Daigneault is looking at it and saying, look, they're going to shoot threes. That's what they're going to do regardless. So we're not going to try and stop them from shooting threes. We're just going to force them into uncomfortable threes they don't want to take. And to your point, that's exactly what they did. Like, I think that's kind of that's a new wrinkle maybe the Celtics are going to have to adjust to is OKC said, fine, you want to be the 3-point shooting team? Go ahead. But we're going to dictate where the threes are, like what kind of 3-point shot you're taking. Because, and this is another thing too, where we get into the analytics and different viewpoints on shooting the threes, but every 3-point shot is not the same. Like they're like, you could say what you want about the percentages and the more than the twos and all that stuff, but a 3-point shot in the corner at the top, 3 feet behind the line, they're very, very different. So that's another just little wrinkle that goes into Missoula ball, is when someone is playing good defense, forcing them into those deeper threes. The math is different. So while the formula may be the same, that the 3-pointers, add up to whatever, the math is different on the percentages that are going in the further they go back. And I think that's just one of the things that, coming away from this OKC game, that was a little, yeah, a little bit of a wake-up call for Celtics fans. I thought, the ref thing, I hate the ref thing. I will agree that, that's not how a game is going to be reffed in the finals. Like, there's just no way. So that doesn't really worry me at all. SGA was the best player on the floor. And Jalen was awful. I mean, he was bad. He had a bad night. He was really bad defensively, bad on offense, and then you see him get frustrated. And this is something that, Tatum and Brown have kind of grown to not do. But he let his emotions kind of get in the way, and he was forcing up bad shots. So I know you're a big Jalen Brown guy. Jay Stu, what did you think of his game against the Thunder?
So I didn't love it. I'd have to go back and look specifically at the fouls if I felt in real time. I can't believe they fouled him out. Like, and that's me being like, oh, this is an NBA superstar. I was surprised that they fouled out both Jalen Brown and Derek White from the game. And again, like, so NBA.com has this cool little feature where if you click on the box score, it's an active live box score. They do not do that for the fouls, right? Because otherwise I'd look like I'd just click on the personal fouls and I'd see all 6 of them or all 12 of them for both players. But what I did do for Jalen Brown, I actually did in real time here, was I clicked on his 5 missed 3-point shots. And so if I do that again, the first miss is from 23 feet. The second miss is 25 feet. The third miss is 26 feet. The third miss is 27 feet. And the fifth miss is from 26 feet. So that goes into their deeper shots. And the one that was closest, the second one, because I'm doing this in real time, because the 25-footer, that's a contested 3-pointer. So that just in that short little sample, that amplifies like what my eyes told me in real time. And I think that's part of the reason that Jalen was in a shooting funk, is that his shots were a little bit deeper. They were contested, at least on one of them, or they were deeper open. But if I looked at his field goal attempts, I bet most of them were contested. And that's a credit to not only OKC and their defense knowing what's coming, but also the length of OKC. Again, game of inches, game of feet. If you've got 2 7-footers or you've got players with wingspan coming at you, those open shots might be misled open shots based on the numbers. Of the 54 open or wide open 3-point attempts of the 63 3-point attempts. If the defender is 3 feet away, but here comes their wingspan that is, 70 inches long, it's a deceptive number. But also the physical punishment. There's so many games in so many days. Like, what else is going on? Like, the Celtics are all over the injury report. So there's physical stuff. They might be just tired. Yeah, this guy. Hang on. Let's just do this. Let's get this out of the way. Hi, Adam. Stu, please just stick to wrestling. Well, Adam, there's your comment. There's your 10 seconds of fame. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch. It's fine. No problem. We got enough viewers. We're good. Doesn't like my commentary. I'm telling you why the Celtics lost. Oh, well, not that. Oh, no. Is probably one of the, as Felger would call them, a baby Celtics fan who can't handle the commentary. Ugh. We're actually pretty good. We're actually a pretty green team here, but that's what it comes down to. I think those are the little details of why the Celtics lost. I can't wait. I don't know. I know OKC has beaten them twice this year. But do you feel like, Skaz, that maybe, and this is going to get to your point about Peyton Pritchard defending SGA a lot, is this Missoula trying this out to see if it works?
Yeah, so this is something that Joe said after the game a couple times too, is that
I knew I heard it somewhere.
Was this like a Missoula? And I think you're giving him way too much credit if you say a practice run, because it's a real game. The Celtics treated it as a real game. They same what they did with the Cavs. But there were, stats, the eye test too. But there were, The matchup broken down, Peyton Pritchard was, I don't want to call him an effective defender on SGA because I don't think anyone was that night. That's how good SGA was. But Peyton Pritchard's numbers were better than just about everybody on the Celtics when it came to covering SGA. So I'm still of the belief that that's Jaylen Brown's job. If it comes to that, if it comes to the finals, I know it did not look good on Thursday night or Wednesday night, whatever it was. But that's Jaylen Brown's job. He's the defending Finals MVP. He was on Luka the entire time. He's earned that. And then I think you do the White, you do the Holiday, and then this is something they've done at times too, where when everything else fails, what do? You throw the most versatile 6'10" guy in the league on him. You put Tatum on him, and you just try and make him create over Tatum. So I think that's always on the table as well. But for me, and Celtics fans say, we were without Porzingis. That's a huge thing. I'm not going to discredit that, but that's an OKC team missing Jalen Williams, who's a stud. Maybe a lot of people in Boston are watching OKC all the time, and he's a young player, but he does a little bit of everything really well. He's an above average defender for sure, but his offensive game, it continues to get better, and he just does the little things, impacts winning basketball. That's the difference with OKC is they play hard and they play winning basketball because, like you said, they're well coached. So for me, that's OKC, I think, is for sure the best team out west, but that doesn't mean anything when you get in a series against LeBron James and Luka or Steph Curry, or even Jokic for that matter. So I would have them coming out of the West as of right now, but there's a couple giants lurking in the West.
Yeah, and the other thing too is they didn't have Alex Caruso, who's their obnoxious, annoying defender. So we also have a comment in the chat because I want to encourage people to participate. SGA for MVP.
Yeah, so for me, SGA is not the MVP. And that's taking literally zero away from SGA. He's incredible. I think he's easily a top, 5 player in the league, whatever you want to say. He does everything awesome. But what Jokic does on a nightly basis, I'm sorry. He's putting up, Wilt stat lines. He had 30, 20, and 20 the other night. Like, what Jokic is doing, and I think unfortunately this happened, to Shaq, and it happened to LeBron. Like, you get voter fatigue, media fatigue, whatever it is. SGA is the new media darling, even though he's 3 months younger than Tatum and far less accomplished, just for the record. But what Jokic does, I mean, he's a freak, and I know he's not, elite defensively as a center, but he's good enough for everything.
He's a smart defender. He's a smart defender, Skaz.
Perfect way to put it. And for me, MVP, like, I look at OKC's roster, I see Chet, who is a stud. If Wemby's not in that draft, Chet is talked about as, a generational prospect. And they have, Jalen Williams. They have, good pieces around him. Caruso, like you said, I'm missing a couple others, but that's a legit team. And I think Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are good players, but they're out there almost as much as we are at times, Jace, too. They are injured often. So most valuable player for me is still Jokic.
I'm a huge Dort guy. I like Dort and what he brings to a team. Need more Dort license plates. That's a modified Simpsons reference because they're all out of Bort license plates in the souvenir shop. So there is the idea of voter fatigue. There was a time where I was of the belief that LeBron James was the MVP until he retired, or he just had a really down season. If you look at the Pro Basketball Reference MVP tracker, Jokic is at 57% chance of being the MVP. Meanwhile, SGA is at 35%. That is the closest that they have been in a long time. We started the MVP tracker.
Yeah, I think SGA had a lead, didn't he, at one point?
SGA had a league at one point. Jokic had a big lead. Giannis is 2%. Tatum is a 1.5%.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a 2-horse race. It's a 2-player race. I would say because Denver's third, that I would give it to SGA. Because if Jokic is the great player, but if it's just about filling up a stat sheet, if it's just about I'm a voter fatigue guy, right?
I get it. No, I get it.
Like, should
and
Embiid
SGA is awesome. Like, I'm not. SGA is a deserving winner.
It's also too, Skaz, that if you have years and years and years of different MVPs for different like, so what goes into the MVP? This is is it the best player, the most the most, because if it's the most valuable player to the NBA, now you have to look at marketing, you have to look at business dollars, you have to look at the bigger picture of
Yeah.
the league. Or is it the most valuable player who impacts a team winning?
Yeah.
To cross sports, A-Rod won the MVP on the last place Texas Rangers
Absolutely.
because he had insane great numbers. So do you reward, like, should Tatum have been the MVP last year because the Celtics had the best record? He was the most impactful player on the Celtics during the regular season and the first half of the season. It was trending that way. And now you have Jokic, and Denver's in third place right now. They are 12 games behind OKC. So don't those 12 games matter?
Yeah,
Those,
but so I would agree with you, but then, coming from a Celtics perspective, I'd say, well, where are Jason Tatum's MVPs then? If those wins matter. So that's the thing I think gets a little, you're hammering all the right points because the MVP award is kind of fluid. There is no direct recipe in the NBA. Doing this will get you the MVP. Like, Westbrook averaged a triple double, won the MVP. Jokic is going to average a triple double, might not win it. Like there is no, curriculum you can fill out to be the MVP.
I want to look at past years, and I'm doing this on the fly. I was not prepared for
Well,
this discussion to go this
well,
direction, which is
well,
actually a good thing.
yeah, I think the big one that stands out to me while you're looking stuff up is Steve Nash winning, too. Because look, Steve Nash, hell of a player. He was never, never, never the best player in the NBA for a full season. I mean, he was great, he was awesome, but he was never the best player in the league.
So the year that Embiid won the MVP,
Yeah.
I think was Jokic fatigue. The year that Embiid won the MVP, the Sixers were 54 and 28, and that was third in the Eastern Conference, coached by Doc Rivers, no less.
Oh,
They're behind the Bucks and the Celtics. Bucks had 58 wins, Celtics 57, Sixers 54, which is one more win than the Nuggets had, which was 53, which was number one in the West. Embiid finished second in the MVP voting that year, and by a lot of points, by a lot of first place votes. So that was, and this is after Jokic won the MVP in 2021. Embiid finished second, Giannis third. Tatum finished sixth that year. Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, LeBron, Harden, Luka, Giannis, James Harden, LeBron. James Harden beats LeBron for the MVP. I have a cuss word. There's your Russell Westbrook year. Let's see what OKC did that year. The year that Russell Westbrook won the MVP, the OKC Thunder were sixth in the Western Conference. So that tells me that winning doesn't mean anything when it comes to the MVP voting, at least for that season, Skaz.
yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a really fluid situation. It can go either way. And you say the Harden thing, and I get the kind of disgust in your voice, but when I watch SGA the other night, that's who he reminds me of. He
Yeah.
reminds me of young James Harden. People forget that, when it was young Durant and Westbrook, Harden was the guy they were throwing at the best player in the league. He was the guy they were trotting out there to lock people down. I know he turned into, can't score a basket in the playoffs, getting fat when he's traded between teams, James Harden. But when he came into the league, he was as advertised. He was an incredible athlete. He got to the free throw line a ton, which is what SGA does, and he was a good two-way player. That's not what he is now, not even close. But when I was watching SGA, I think there's a little Harden in there.
I'll tell you what, though, like his finishes, James Harden's finishes when he did win the MVP, Houston was first.
Yeah.
So I can't. And here's a funny story, Skaz. I don't know if you know this story. I don't know if it's been out there. Is the Celtics wanted James Harden. Instead, they got Jeff Green.
Oh,
Do you know this story? Is this story out there?
I don't know if I know this one.
Okay. So when the story, as I heard it, which is always dangerous, was when the Celtics traded Kendrick Perkins. The trade was originally for James Harden. And OKC at the last minute changed their mind. And they're like, would you take Jeff Green and the big? I can't think of what the big's name was. I might have to Google that. Jeff Green trade. Too much Google for me, guys. We're not moving. This is my fault. The pace of this podcast is not moving like it should be. Jeff Green trade. And I know because I was working the Celtics games. That's my point of reference, is I was around that team. That was my previous place of employment. Nate Christage.
There we go. Yeah, it looks like someone in the chat was just all over it too.
It was Christage cash, a 2012 first round pick. The Celtics got the pick. It was for Kendrick Perkins and Nate Robinson, and a draft pick that was they got a draft pick because of Jeff Green's medical condition.
Yeah, and he's like still playing, Jeff Green.
Yeah, but that was it was supposed to be James Harden, and then OKC changed their mind, which also leads to, what did OKC get back for James Harden?
Oh man, was that like Kevin Martin and he might have been in the Minnesota deal.
This is a massive sidetrack, but I'm so obsessed with MVP voting and things that almost happened. Traded by OKC with nobody of. It was Jeremy Lamb, Kevin Martin, Steven Adams was one of the draft picks, and then Mitch McGarry was
Jeremy Lamb. Hell of a UConn player, Jeremy Lamb.
Yep. All right. Enough James Harden talk. But the Celtics almost had James Harden, which would have been very unique, especially blending in with that team.
Yes, very. Stu, I got. What do you this weekend? Drew Holiday, the return of Porzingis and Drew Holiday.
Steady from Holiday, which is all I'm looking for. Right? Doesn't turn the ball over against OKC. Has some flashes here or there. Hopefully he's building up to being healthy. As far as KP goes, he said, quote, tried to push my body. He played against Brooklyn, had a great dunk. I mean, nobody plays better with extended rest than Porzingis does.
True.
But he tried to push his body to play the Lakers game. Couldn't do it. I don't know what's wrong with him. I feel good about making this joke now, and I don't know if I made it to you in the control room or I made it with somebody else. I definitely know I made it with somebody with the Celtics. I joked about maybe he has mono, and that's why he made the trip to Miami.
I had heard that theory tossed around. Yes.
Okay, so because it's an illness that seemingly is non-contagious because he's been around the team, he's been practicing, and I say that jokingly. I'm not assuming anything. I'm just like, that was a joke that was at least going around the control room. You said you had heard that theory. I know I joked with a member of the Celtics organization about it, and they got a good laugh out of it. Tried to push Porzingis said I tried to push my body the day before the crash I was like historic. The next day I couldn't even get out of bed to shoot around. I was just so fatigued. I was like, I'm not going to be able to help out there. If he's that, like, he only played 7 games in the playoffs last year out of the 19, right? So if you get 7 of 19 from Porzingis in the playoffs and they win the title, I'd be okay with that. I'd be happy with that. They have to just be careful with it, because Grandy might have said this on the broadcast one of the nights this week, where he gets the feeling that this is the defending Banner 17 Celtics, where there's a bunch of injuries going on, and then ultimately they lost Kevin Garnett for the playoffs, right? Because of his knee.
Yep.
But they didn't get a full title defense because there were issues there. There were health issues there, and there have been health issues. Tatum is starting to miss games, I think, by design. Jaylen Brown is missing games. Holiday's banged up. Derek White's banged up. Porzingis is. You hope that he's ready to go. You certainly hope that he's ready to go. but you can't guarantee him for a full playoff run. And if we get big game Al Horford, then that helps. But now you've got in the playoffs, they're going to hunt Sam Hauser. They're going to hunt Peyton Pritchard. They're going to, if Torrey Craig makes it off the bench, they're going to hunt him. They're going to hunt the murder hornet. So there's 4 guys that you can't put on the floor for extended minutes. So you got to have everybody healthy. I hope Porzingis is right. I hope he's fine. I hope it's an illness that they figured out. But you don't know. And I hate saying that because I need a take today, but you just don't know. If he plays like he did in Brooklyn, game on. We're good. If he doesn't, we got to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, and you kind of just, a little wake-up call for me, but you said he was available for 7 playoff games last year. That was the number. And they played, what, 18 playoff games last year?
19 playoff games.
Yeah, so that's not happening this year. I'll give you a take today, Jay Stu.
Please do.
If Porzingis is available for 7 or less playoff games, they're not winning a title.
Yeah.
If this wasn't the Celtics, if this was the Knicks, say on a 7-game homestand, and they went 5-2, but they lost to the Cavaliers and the Thunder, Celtics fans would be saying frauds. And as a Celtic fan, I would counter with, well, Holiday was banged up. Porzingis is banged up. Porzingis didn't play. Tatum and Brown minutes, blah, blah, blah. But none of that stuff matters if Porzingis isn't around in the playoffs, because this isn't last year's playoffs. And the Celtics aren't going to be playing 19 playoff games on their way to a title. You're not having these 4-1 series this year, maybe in the first round, but this is a Celtics team that's really struggled at home this year, especially for what their record is. They're just, for in like context of NBA history, a team with this record having what the Celtics record is at home, I should have dove into it a little bit more, but it's almost unprecedented because they're not a great home team. I mean, they're still good, but in terms of what they are, it's almost shocking. And so if Porzingis is only going to be around for 7 playoff games, I think that's a very scary thing for the Celtics. And you mentioned the Tatum thing. They got him to sit the other night against Utah. And then he plays last night against Brooklyn. But in that game, he's a -15. He's 1 of 7 from 3. I get it. I get the Tatum thing. It's why I like him. It's why I respect him so much, because he's different than a lot of NBA players. He wants to be out there on a nightly basis. He constantly talks about it could be a kid's Christmas present. It could be their birthday, like whatever. That's in this era of NBA star. That's different. But when he's out there looking like he was, last night, -15, poor shooting, like at some point, this is a guy who's been playing basketball for what feels like 3 years straight. You got to rest him down the stretch.
Yeah,
no, I'm with you. The East is just stronger this year. You're not going to walk to the title like you did last year is my point, to get to the point.
Yeah, and Michael C. brings a good point that potentially they need Porzingis to beat Cleveland. And if everybody's healthy and nobody taps out Joe Murray, then that might be the case. I thought for a while that the Celtics were going to go for it and go for the number 1 seed. They're not. They're going to manage health. They're going to manage everything and hope that, from my standpoint, I hope it's not Orlando. Like, Orlando just does not match up well. And I'm not saying that the Celtics are going to lose in the first round if they're healthy to Orlando, but Orlando's been a big problem. I decided to hit the mute button and not burp into the microphone. It's gas.
No, you're good. You're good. And
I'd lose at fart court. They turn a fart into a burp or something like that.
Of course. But
no, Porzingis is important. Porzingis is important. Healthy, but to the bigger points, guys, the entire team's health is important. And this is an interesting thing, is that, like, yes, I do believe that the Celtics are banged up. But what they're doing is they're putting the regulars on the injury report so that if all of a sudden Porzingis illness, non-COVID, okay, he's shooting around, but he's not playing. Jaylen Brown's out there shooting around, but nope, his back's a little tight. Jason Tatum's out there. His hamstring's a little tight. Porzingis, Al Horford out, big toe. Holiday out, hammer thumb, like whatever. Like, they're using the injury report so that they don't get investigated by the NBA, like OKC is getting for they sat everybody against Portland, I guess. I didn't notice this in real time. But the NBA is looking into them not putting people on the injury report, sitting out too many players. And Missoula's got this all mapped out already. He knows who he wants to play when he wants to play them. It's just a matter of making sure, like, okay, everybody, this is Tom Brady's shoulder injury for however many straight years. And then the one time they take him off the injury report with a shoulder, he blows out his knee or whatever it was.
Yes, yeah. But I'm with you. It's the old San Antonio Spurs. They were the founders of this, and I'm perfectly fine with it. Rest everybody. At this point, and I did the unfortunate thing of looking at their schedule the rest of the way before we started the podcast. The rest of their schedule absolutely stinks. They go out west. They play Phoenix. But it's not good. They play the Hornets twice. I think it's ugly. So that OKC Cleveland thing is going to be what's in people's mind. I think so. Get healthy, get right, make Tatum rest. I know he doesn't want to, but the team needs it. You've gotten some good minutes from, Shireman over the last week. I don't know what he's going to turn into, but he's giving you NBA minutes. Every once in a while he dives on the floor more than anybody else on the roster. What do you got still?
Shireman. I love Shireman. I think he's going to be a 10-year NBA player. He could start on a bad team tomorrow.
You think?
How do you like that for a take?
That's a take.
He could start on a bad NBA team tomorrow. Right? I think in time, give him 4 years. I think he'll get another contract with the Celtics. I could see him in the starting lineup for the Celtics in 5 years. How's that for a take? I love the guy. I love the guy. Left-handed 3-point shooter, can pass well, can get rebounds when he needs to. Like, and this will come back and bite me in the arse if we're still alive in 5 years, with the pending doom and gloom of 2030 coming, but and the AI technology taking over. But I felt good about him coming out of the draft. I feel good about him here. He's just got to learn the NBA. He's a smart player, can do a lot of different things. So yeah.
I just worry about his athleticism as a whole. That's the one thing. But he seems like he's got all the intangibles.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, guys, we're at the 33-minute marker. What else did you want to bring up? Because I have exhausted all of my useless notes and useless information.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard set the record for 3-pointers off the bench. He'll be 6th man of the year. I don't think we need to throw the guy a parade or anything, but he was a great college player, very good college player, but I think for him to have the NBA career that he's having would surprise just about anybody, and he's a legit piece on this team. He is. I know, he gets called a gimmick at times, or, they bring him in for the halves. That might be how he's viewed, around the league, but he's a legit threat, and he does get picked on at times and has had some ugly games this year. But when he gets hot, and sometimes the Celtics need it, he's as good as anybody in the league. So, congrats to him. I don't know if you think he might be starting next year. I'm not so sure he's starting next year, but I wonder how much he can boost that record.
So if we're talking what move the Celtics are going to make in the offseason, might depend on the ownership thing, which the leader in the clubhouse is Pags. There are 4 finalists. Pags is at the top of the list. One of the owners of the Philadelphia Phillies is on the list, and then 2 people who I've never heard of before in my life. So like if it's one of the other guys, if it's the non-Pags, then they got to move money this offseason. And so if they're going to move money this offseason, it's, are you moving Holiday? Are you moving Porzingis? Horford might retire. So you got to either trade and get back. It depends on what they do. If they trade Holiday, then Pritchard is probably your point guard next year.
Yeah.
Right? I would think, unless you bring back, because if you have to dump money, quote unquote, well, then you're not getting an NBA starting point guard unless he's in that like year 3 of his first contract.
JD Davison.
I mean, sure, I'll go with it.
I say slightly in jest. And just on the Phillies guy thing too, I don't know anything about the guy, but his name is Stan Middleman. I do not want someone with the name Middleman being the owner of my sports team. And I know that's a layup, but I just can't imagine just having that. Like, he would get eaten alive.
I would love to know what the bids were. And I hope that
Yes.
information comes out. I hope the Globe does a piece on it because, the Globe, Himmelsbach gets everything or Washburn gets everything. So,
Himmelsbach's been, he's been great on this.
but hopefully we find out what the bids have been because I don't know that they're getting $6 billion.
No.
I am happy to see Pags. Pags is in the Final Four, so that means he's got. I always thought he had the money when he ran for governor. He blew however many hundreds of millions of dollars trying to be governor. I think it was it governor or senator or something like that. He was trying to make a run at politics. I was hoping he'd win. Like if you have a bad word to say about Pags, you're the a-hole. That's how I feel about that.
Love
Pags
it.
is a good dude.
Love
Pags
it.
is a good dude. Yeah, I was going to say something, but now I'm not going to say it because that'll get me in trouble. But Pags is good dude. Love Pags. So yeah, Joe Murray should make sure that you get a little piece of that plus 5,000 bet. He
Peyton Pritchard. Oh, hey,
Pritchard 6-man.
If Joe's giving out a bet on the air, I'm usually following it. So I was right there with him.
I would do that too. I don't have anything else, guys. Anything else?
Nothing really for me. Just stay healthy. Missoula, I'm interested to see what he does down the stretch. Brad Stevens has been seen scouting recently. He's back on the trail. He's out some March Madness games over the weekend. So always working, Brad. That's why he's the best in the biz.
Let me do one quick tankathon look. Because if there is a team that has a high draft pick, so let's see, Utah, Washington, Charlotte, New Orleans, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Toronto, Portland, Chicago, San Antonio, Miami, Phoenix goes to Houston, Dallas, Sacramento, Dallas. I don't see any team there that looks like they would want Holiday.
No.
Or Porzingis, right? Of those teams that I just ran off.
No, I can't imagine. I mean, maybe the Spurs would want him, but I don't know. I think if anything, Holiday would want to go back to LA.
DeAndre Fox.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but maybe it's like a 2. I don't know. Get Chris Paul out of there. He sucks.
Would you trade Holiday to Miami?
I don't know. Whatever the. I don't.
For 11.
Do they want him? I don't know. I don't know if they want him. And one other thing too, just while you mentioned Miami real quick, Jimmy Butler. People are raving about the Warriors and Jimmy Butler's impact. And look, he's been great, but it has very little to do with Jimmy Butler and mostly to do with Steph Curry. And I will say this, Jimmy Butler, since he has joined the Golden State Warriors, has as many scoring 6 points or fewer games than LeBron James does in his entire career. So just some context. That's all. Just adding context.
I love how much you hate Jimmy Butler. Yeah, I was trying to find out. No, there's no trade partner there. Maybe Philly for 6. If you go 28 and Holiday, does that get you to 6? Maybe you take back Tobias Harris.
Oh God, no, thank you. No, thank you.
No, but he would be the locker room replacement for Horford.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
but that's a side topic. All right, Skaz, we're good here. We will talk again next week. Celtics' toughest game down the stretch is at Memphis, I think, and that's March 31st.
Good one.
But this week it is Brooklyn at Jazz at Blazers. So we have a decision to make, Skaz. We can either do our next Green Teamers episode like post game, which is, if it's a 6:00 Sunday, we're looking at 9:00 post game.
I'm open to whatever. I don't do anything, Jay. Still, I'm around.
I know. It's actually the following week. There might be I might not be available for the following week. Might be a 3-day weekend for me, but we'll burn that bridge. So maybe it's a late night Green Teamers podcast. Maybe Jay Stu will get some booze into him, and we'll make it more interesting. No FCC regulations on that.
Love it.
All right, very good. Skaz, we'll talk to you next week. I'll see you in the control room tomorrow as we annoy people. Everybody else, have a wonderful Sunday night, and go Green Team. Continue green teaming.